Hello, Indian mythology fans. My name is Sonika, and I am the author of the book Who God Really Is. Today, I bring you the story behind the world famous image of Kali holding a demon's head in one hand while standing on top of the Hindu god Shiva as a necklace of skulls hangs around her goddess neck. A formidable image indeed. This story has a lot of pivotal lessons for us, especially for self-healing and building romantic relationships successfully. You can absolutely apply these lessons to your modern or current experiences. Now, Hinduism is sometimes called a complicated religion. It's why I wrote the book, Who God Really Is, a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern rational lens. Do grab your copy on Amazon today. Let me tell you the history or story of Goddess Kali from her conception to her self-transformation and the reason why she stepped on the Hindu god Shiva. Once upon a time, in the vast and infinite cycles of cosmic existence, there arose a great and terrible demon named Raktabija. He was no ordinary asura or demon. He had been blessed with a terrifying boon. Every time a drop of his blood touched the earth, a new clone of him would arise. This made him virtually invincible. No matter how many times he was struck down, once his blood spilt, another army of him would be given birth, making him pretty much impossible to defeat. Raktabija became a terror to the three worlds, earth, heaven, and the netherworld. He joined forces with the powerful asuras, Shumba and Nishumba, these other demons who had taken over heaven and dethroned the gods or demigods or devas as they are known in Hinduism. The once glorious celestial abodes were now filled with darkness and fear. The demigods and gods, including Lord Brahma and Lord Vishnu, powerless against this terrifying demon, fled to Mount Kailash, where Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati resided. Desperate, they prayed to Mahadevi, the supreme goddess, the giver of divine intelligence, as I describe her in my book, Who God Really Is, the embodiment of all divine energy, also known as Adi Shakti. They prayed to her. Hearing their pleas, Mahadevi or Parvati, the gentle and loving form of the Devi, of the divine feminine, smiled. She assured the gods and the demigods that she would put an end to the menace of Raktabija and his allies, his clones, and the other demons or asuras who bonded with him. With that, she transformed into Durga, the warrior goddess, and mounted her lion, moving forward into battle. Armed with celestial weapons gifted by the gods to her, Durga descended onto the battlefield. The battle between Durga and the demons was fierce and thunderous. The skies roared with divine energy, and the earth trembled beneath the clash of weapons. The demons or asuras, Shumba and Nishumba, furious at the interference of goddess Durga, sent their massive demon armies to destroy her. But goddess Durga, in her supreme power, cut them down effortlessly. Seeing this, Raktabija himself stepped forward. With each blow goddess Durga landed on him, his blood spilled, and from every drop of that blood, a new Raktabija demon emerged. Soon, the battlefield was swarming with thousands, then millions of demons or Raktabijas. Goddess Durga fought fearlessly, but for every demon she killed, countless more took his place. The gods watched in horror. If this continued, the world would be overrun with Raktabijas. Seeing the desperate situation, Goddess Durga's face darkened with rage. From her forehead, a sudden blinding burst of energy erupted, and from it emerged Goddess Kali, a terrifying and dark but magnificent form of the divine feminine or divine mother. Kali was fierce, wild, and unstoppable. Her complexion was dark as the night sky, her eyes blazed red with fury, and her hair flowed like a storm. She wore a garland of skulls right from the outset and held a sharp sword in one hand. Her long tongue flicked out, thirsting for the blood of the demon Raktabijas. She let out a mighty roar that sent chills through all of the demons. With unmatched speed and ferocity, Goddess Kali charged ahead right into the demons, right into the battlefield. She attacked Raktabija with relentless force, cutting him down before he could even react. But instead of letting his blood fall to the ground, she stretched out her massive tongue and drank every single drop of blood before it could touch the earth. She drank every single drop of the demon's blood before it could touch the earth. Every time she struck a Raktabija on the battlefield, she sucked up his blood entirely, ensuring that no more clones could be born from that blood. Raktabija, for all his strength and power, found himself helpless against Goddess Kali's terrifying hunger for destruction, of evil. Within moments, the battlefield was cleared of his duplicates, and finally Goddess Kali struck the final blow, beheading the final Raktabija once and for all. His reign of terror ended with her victorious scream. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating or review. I really appreciate it. But Kali, Goddess Kali, was not done. Fueled by the fury of battle, she continued her rampage, destroying everything that she could find in her path, that she considered of the world, that she considered material and ungodly. The gods grew afraid. If she did not stop, the entire universe might be destroyed. Lord Shiva, understanding the urgency, stepped forward, sacrificing himself. He knew that only he could bring his wife, his consort, Goddess Kali, back to her peaceful self. As Kali danced in her frenzied state, uncontrollable, Lord Shiva lay down beneath her feet. When her foot accidentally touched his chest, she suddenly became aware of herself. Shocked at having stepped on her beloved husband or consort, the great Hindu god Shiva, Goddess Kali bit her tongue in embarrassment and immediately calmed down. With that, Goddess Kali returned to her peaceful, feminine, divine feminine form, Mahaparvati, and the balance of the universe was restored. The rampage ended, and the unnecessary or unoriginal suffering that is defined by the demon Raktabija also concluded. I describe what is meant by unoriginal suffering in my book, What is God Good For? Evil, Karma, Sin, and Suffering, correctly explained finally. I encourage you to read it on Amazon. With Raktabija and his allies utterly defeated, the demigods reclaimed their celestial kingdoms, and the gods, the Trinity gods, the Hindu Trinity gods, were satisfied. Peace was restored and the world was saved from destruction. Goddess Kali remained a symbol of fierce compassion, the mother who will do anything to protect the goodness of the universe and her children. Goddess Kali is worshipped to this day as the ultimate destroyer of ego, fear, and ignorance, when ego, fear, and ignorance are moved into their extremes. She is the one who brings the ultimate or most clean, most thorough liberation from the extremes of ego, extreme fear, and utter ignorance. What are the lessons that we learn from this Hindu myth of the time when Goddess Kali stepped on her consort or husband, Lord Shiva? To start, let's remember and understand that Rakta Bija symbolizes negative thoughts, desires, and ego. Each time we suppress them without truly addressing them, they multiply. And only complete transformation, which comes from an exogenous force, which Goddess Kali represents, because she cannot be one with the demon. She is not the demon. She is like a god, an exogenous being. Only that exogenous being can destroy cycles of utter negative thoughts or complete negativity, extreme desire, and untamable rebelliousness or ego. When Lord Shiva surrendered himself to Goddess Kali in the way that he did in this Hindu myth, he was telling us, he was teaching us that even the greatest yogi bows to the exogenous, supreme, divine intelligence as I define her in my book, Who God Really Is. The Supreme Shakti or Mahadevi, goddess, the divine feminine energy. This Hindu story mirrors the mindset programs that we humans create when battling our own inner demons, our fears, traumas, generational trauma, karma, and self-sabotage. Just as Rakta Bija's blood gave birth to countless duplicates of himself, our negative thoughts and limiting beliefs, and also moments of self-disappointment or lack of self-confidence, those moments of the lack of self-esteem, when these are all left unchecked, they multiply and manifest in different areas of our lives. Each time we suppress them without truly addressing them, they resurface in new ways within us. These inner demons start to shape our reality in ways that we don't always recognize and that we cannot always regain easy control over unless we finally turn to God. That's Rakta Bija for you. Rakta Bija is the inner demon that remains unaddressed. That's why he keeps cloning himself every single time that blood is allowed to drop and combine with the ground. I'm reminded here of that story in the Bible, the story of Cain and Abel. Cain murders his own brother Abel. That blood drops to the ground, and the ground is forced to swallow it up. That blood symbolizing an act of evil, that blood having come from an act of evil, an act of a criminal act, a murder within a family. So, in this Hindu mythology, in this Hindu myth, we are being told to address our inner demons. And sometimes to address those inner demons, when we struggle to do that, we really have to reach out to an exogenous supreme being, God. And we have to do this. We have to recognize that God can help us. We have a lot of secular spirituality, tools, right? In this world, we can go to therapy, we can talk to a psychiatrist, psychologist, we can do sound healing, we can do yoga, we can get tarot readings. We have a lot of these secular spirituality tools. We can try laughing therapy, breathing exercises, Reiki healing. But the truth is, don't forget God. Don't forget to integrate the worship of God, He who is exogenous to you. He or she, whatever you want to, however you want to, whatever pronoun you want to give to God. God who is exogenous to you and who is the divine intelligence, the supreme source of this very intelligently designed universe. Don't forget to integrate the worship of God into your secular spirituality, self-care methods. Even if it is therapy or visiting a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a medical doctor, still give some attention to God. Give concentration and focus to God. And as I write in my book, Who God Really Is, all you really need to do is engage in mantra meditation, Hindu mantra meditation if you are a Hindu. Repeat the name of God. Seek Him out, and you will be thoroughly healed. Because only God, no matter whatever tools you use, I'm telling you, only God can reach the most ancient and deepest, most fragmented parts of you that exist as your spirit or soul, your self, S-E-L-F. Only God can reach those. To reach the deepest, we must first reach for the highest. And the highest of all the tools out there that are available for self-care and self-healing is God. And we only can reach Him through the worship of God, through an active, dedicated repetition of His names, His divine names. concentrating and focusing on some image or understanding of the Lord and repeating his name is what is going to get you to thoroughly heal in ways that no secular spirituality, tool or resource or medical, tool or resource can do for you. Okay? I'm reminded here of, again, what I write in my book, Who God Really Is. Through our worship of God, we are indeed brought to a place within ourselves that is free of anxiety and fear. It is a tolerable place within us for ourselves and for others. So we achieve self-tolerance only through the active worship of God, of repeating God's name, of evangelizing God, so to speak. When we bow and pray to God in the midst of our self-mastery journeys, troubled by our inner demons or demons even from the outside, people who create chaos in our lives, toxic people, we undoubtedly get the signals from Him that we need in order to know that He won't let us go to our inner demons. And then we know that no matter what, we will make it because God will not let us go to our inner demons. We will make it. We will make it because God always gets His way. God always gets. Just like Goddess Kali. She got what she wanted to get. She accomplished her task. And she did not let the goodness of this world go, utterly destroyed. The Divine Mother Durga did not allow it. She transformed herself to an even more extreme or higher level. That whatever she needed to do, she did it. So that goodness could not be utterly destroyed. God will never let us go into utter chaos. We might go into chaos that, it's pretty tough on us, right? Chaos and toxicity in our lives, disorganization in our lives that creates a lot of problems in our lives. But God will never let us be utterly or completely destroyed. It's why Hinduism is so important, because it teaches us that, we may not accomplish our complete spiritual evolution in one life, but in our next life, it understands that there is a cycle of reincarnation, and every single life we live, any life you're going to live in the future is going to be another opportunity for you to achieve that spiritual evolution, that destruction of your inner demons that you were not able to in your current life. But opportunities are here. I am here, right, to teach you so that you can get to that place of spiritual evolution, the place that Goddess Kali helps us arrive upon. So, there you have it. You should realize, all of you listeners should realize that God has nothing. He does not have anything to do with whether or not you cover your head and hair with cloth, or you use electronics on weekends, or honor your ancestors. Self-denial does not always equate with genuine internal and social balance and self-discipline development. It does not always render one emotionally and mentally balanced. Thus, this book, Who God Really Is, should be read by every human, including those who actively worship God. You must understand who you really worship and what you really worship for. Otherwise, you will not ever truly know the real meaning behind the religious or spirituality-based rituals that you embrace or conduct. You will not be able to judge if there is even any real value behind some of them properly, because you do not know who God really is. I encourage you all to grab your copy of my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon today. Goddess Durga's initial struggle against Rakta Bija in this Hindu myth of the time when Goddess Kali stepped on Lord Shiva represents the way we often confront our inner struggles with external solutions, believing that if we push through with the same old solutions, push through with them, that we can overcome all our problems. But sometimes we really have to reach for the highest. And even Goddess Durga had to transform into the almost extreme state of herself, one can say, the most extreme divine state of herself, in order to actually overcome her problem with Rakta Bija, right? So, we can confront our inner demons, our struggles, our inner struggles with the same solutions as everyone else. Maybe we, somebody tells us that therapy is good and it's helped them. And we say to ourselves, okay, we're going to try therapy. But we really have to question, how much has that therapy really dug into us and revitalized us, right? How much have we really resolved ourselves? Have we included God? The worship of God. Have we given attention to God while we've been going to therapy? That's important. We must integrate God with our other solutions for self-care and self-healing in order to thoroughly resolve ourselves, in order to thoroughly heal our karmas and karmic imprints. And then we will have better romantic relationship development. We will have successful relationship development on earth, and we will prosper in our careers, in our health, in our healthcare regimens, and we will prosper in our, romantic love partnerships. And in some ways, Goddess Durga, through her attempts to defeat Raktabija in this Hindu myth of Goddess Kali, shows us by way of just herself, her own example on the battlefield, that we humans eventually have to see that fighting the surface level symptoms isn't enough. When deep-seated fears or wounds continue to replicate in our relationship development, in our career paths, or even our understanding of ourselves and our self-worth, we must seek a deeper transformative power to truly heal and break that cycle once and for all. That is the meaning of Goddess Durga. She is using her own, let's say, unsuccessful attempts at defeating Raktabija and her own call to transform herself, as an example for us humans to learn from. She's using herself, her own weaknesses, so to speak, so we can learn through her in this Hindu myth. Again, if you are enjoying this podcast, please leave a rating or review. I will really appreciate it. Now, here is an important lesson for you if you are trying to successfully develop a romantic relationship. Notice that Goddess Kali, once she steps on Lord Shiva and recognizes what she has done, she doesn't step back. The story tells us that the first thing that she does is bite her tongue. She bites her tongue. And one of the greatest issues that a lot of people have, especially with women or their own feminine nature, is that they don't control their tongues when they are speaking to others or trying to get through to a partner or potential partner, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, a husband or a wife. When you're trying to get through to that person and you're trying to get that person to change, you have to learn to bite your tongue. You cannot let your tongue be like Goddess Kali's tongue, which eventually in her rampage kind of went all over the place. It was uncontrolled, right? You have to know how to properly communicate. And that is the value of us understanding why Goddess Kali bit her tongue. That's the first action she had when she realized that she stepped on her husband, the Lord Shiva. She bit her tongue. We can destroy our relationships if we don't control the way we communicate our thoughts, our needs, our wants with our partners. So there is tremendous value in us really listening to and analyzing the Hindu myths, the great Hindu stories from Hindu mythology, the great Hindu histories from Hindu mythology to this day. A lot of people, as you're dating, online dating, trying to date in person, you have to know how to communicate with others who you think need to change to some respect. You have to be able to communicate wisely. Otherwise, you may end up stepping on a potential spouse, or you may end up stepping on your current spouse in a way that you didn't mean to, and you don't want to have regrets. Right? Better to avoid regrets than to have them. That's the value of us paying attention to God's ancient stories or ancient stories, Hindu mythology, for example, or even Bible stories that feature God, that are God-centric. There is tremendous value in the 21st century in those stories. I'm also reminded of what I write in my book, What is God Good For? Evil, Karma, Sin, and Suffering, correctly explained finally. Attachment to the desire to contemplate suffering is necessary to contemplate suffering. Even the Buddha, in expressing his desire to teach his sermons to his previous teachers and ascetic companions, demonstrated that cravings were impossible for even him to avoid entirely on earth. Even when we harvest and eat only plants, which are intelligent beings, we are causing disturbance or suffering to them. What then can humans do that is not going to cause suffering? What can we crave that is not going to cause suffering? By God's intelligent design, we were born to create some disturbance or suffering in this world. It is for this reason that even Goddess Kali could not succeed in ridding all of existence of all its demons. Some examples of chaos must exist in this world. That's why, or in this universe. That's why Lord Shiva stepped in. That's why he had to surrender himself to Goddess Kali. She just simply could not persist as she was. It could not be allowed. It is never allowed. So this is why I often say Hinduism is the most realistic religion in existence today. It is very true to reality. This is all of what I write in my book, Who God Really Is, and especially what is God good for? Evil, karma, sin, and suffering, correctly explained finally. Do grab your copies of my books on Amazon today. I strongly encourage you to read them. They are highly enlightening with the absolute truth, the fundamental truth. So it was inevitable that Goddess Kali would not be able to persist in her form. She had to be transformed into the more serene, balanced state of herself, Goddess Parvati. Now, Kali's emergence represents the power of radical self-awareness and inner transformation. Remember, Kali came about once Goddess Durga realized what she really needed to do. Just as Kali consumed Rakta Bija's blood to prevent him from multiplying, we must directly confront, acknowledge, and fully process our negative patterns and what they need. This could mean facing childhood wounds for you, limiting beliefs, self-esteem issues, childhood bullying, or deep-seated fears without fear or avoidance, okay? And you can only really do so if you start to actively worship God. Now remember this, when you reach out to God in the worship of Him, as you are trying to heal yourself of your self-disappointment, of the things that you've gone through in the past. Remember, God does not get angry at you. God does not show anger toward you for the flaws that you have and the shortcomings that you have. God heals you in a peaceful, concentrated, focused way. That is not often the case when you try to reach out to other humans to help you. Okay? And not every human has the right self-care advice for you. Not every human can give you the deepest, most graceful piece of wisdom or advice. Remember that. God is where that solution, the most peaceful solution, is found. A solution that does not make you feel bad for who you are in your, let's say, currently flawed state, or in your state that is in need of healing. God does not make you feel embarrassed for who you are in your currently unhealed state. This is why, there is tremendous value in engaging in the worship of God, in repeating God's name every single day. And Goddess Kali's wild, untamed energy symbolizes the courage that we sometimes need to embrace that is beyond societal expectations or standards. Goddess Kali teaches us that sometimes even anger has a place. It has a place in the eradication of chaos or evil or disorganization in this world. Even anger has a role to play, a divine role, a very useful divine role to play in the eradication of suffering, of unoriginal suffering. This is in fact why Hinduism is an extremely, high-level religion, or it is an extremely, realistic religion. I mean, that's the best compliment I can ever give to any religion, to be honest, that it is very realistic. Because even Hinduism understands that even though society tells us you got to tame your anger is bad, 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 the Hindu myth of Goddess Kali stepping on Lord Shiva and defeating the demon Raktabija teaches us that actually anger sometimes does have a divine, pivotal, and very useful role to play in the destruction of what I call unoriginal suffering in my book, What is God Good For? Evil, Karma, Sin, and Suffering, Correctly Explained Finally. So again, grab your copy of my books on Amazon. You will come to understand reality, the spiritual reality, and God as they all are, okay? So we need to tame our anger, yes, but remember, sometimes anger can be useful. So we must not be afraid to show some anger when it is justified, but it must not go out of control, as Goddess Kali teaches us by way of her own example. That's when Lord Shiva stepped in to make sure that that anger did not go out of bounds, did not become unnecessary. What was necessary anger should not have become unnecessary anger, and it did not become that because of Lord Shiva. And finally, we learn through this Hindu myth of when Goddess Kali stepped on Lord Shiva and defeated the demon Raktabija, that when Lord Shiva steps under, or basically surrenders himself under his wife or consort Goddess Kali's feet, we learn from his example that healing isn't just about destroying old patterns. We have to arrive into a new empowered state of forgiveness, of calm and grace and proper self-awareness. That is what Goddess Kali started to sort of lack before Lord Shiva stepped in. So that is important, that once we destroy old patterns, the patterns that don't serve us well, we must not forget that we absolutely have to arrive into a state of proper balance, forgiveness, self-awareness, and also understanding the human condition of others who are not quite as spiritually evolved as us yet, those who have themselves not healed themselves as we have done so. That is the value of Shiva stepping in and kind of stopping Goddess Kali in her tracks. If you have found it somewhat difficult to understand God well through the often complex Hindu stories, then do read my book, Who God Really Is, on Amazon. It is a book in which the principles of Hinduism are best understood and God is explained through a modern rational lens. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak with you in the next episode.